Just read a report from the London Economic, um, not a publication I'm very familiar with, but anyway, the report is about drinking on flights, basically. Michael O'Leary of Ryanair is planning to introduce a two-drink limit. Now, frustratingly, I can't do a split screen on this computer because usually I would try and do a split screen and read out the article, for reference. I'll just put a link to it in the description. That's the best thing I could do. But broadly speaking, it wasn't a very long report. Broadly speaking, he's reported a problem on his flight. Ryanair, of course, is a short haul carrier, tends to go from the British Isles to continental European destinations. Um, and yeah, O'Leary's basically taken this measure because there's been a rise in these sort of problems. People getting blind drunk and just basically causing problems. Um, Now, one thing that's mentioned in the report is that simply checking people at the gate, he points out, isn't practical because all they need to do is kind of get up in a group and shuffle through. Now, if you have someone on security, they can't really, people get their baggage checked and so on, but I think it's quite plausible that someone who is drunk can hide it and then they just play up on the flight. So, especially if they're in a group. Um, this is obviously a problem on short haul flights. I'm fairly well traveled. I've been on both long haul flights and short haul flights. And it seems to be that where you get the biggest problem with drunk, obnoxious passengers, it tends to be on the short haul flights. Um, there was sort of a consensus in the comments that most people were sort of broadly agreeing with it or broadly agreeing that something needs to be done. Here's my thing. If you need more than two drinks, then maybe you've got a problem. And I don't understand people who treat airports like, I was going to say like pubs. There are, of course, pubs in airports, but you don't go to an airport for a drinking session. At least I would hope most people don't. You go for travel. That's what it's for. Um, so really, if people feel they need more than two drinks, I would say there's a problem there. Even if they have them even if they could control themselves, do you really need more than two drinks? Um, I could understand the controversy if there was a total ban, because it would be hypocritical given that drinks are served on flights, and also in obviously off not off license, it's duty free and bars and so on. So a total prohibition wouldn't be practical. But here's the thing, for short haul flights, maybe they should just ban alcohol on the flights. I mean, I don't know. I just think that this is one of those old things where we're weighing up kind of rights and responsibilities, and I take the view that the rights of the majority to travel in peace, trump the purported rights of a hen party or a stag party. Um, and it's predictable. I'm no travel snob, but you can just imagine a stag party or a hen party going to Benidorm. Almost, there's a very high likelihood that they're going to get inebriated. It just seems it's the thing that's done. So, I mean, personally, I wouldn't go to those places because of that problem. Um, some might interpret that as snobby, but I want to go, I want to relax on holiday. I don't want to be surrounded by drunk, obnoxious people. And here's the thing, people talk about, oh, well, don't spoil the fun for everyone else. But what, the first people who would say that they can handle the booze are the ones that can't, are the ones that are taking drink after drink, and they're not necessarily being violent, but they're getting louder and louder. That's obnoxious because it's other passengers who have to put up with that and the flight crew. I mean, it's like, you get on public transport and there's been a football match on and you get um, football supporters. And, I want to be careful here not to look like I'm generalizing, but you get a big group of football supporters who've been to the pub and they take it over. They take over, I mean, thinking here the Tyne and Wear Metro. they'll take over a whole carriage and throw the weight around. Again, not necessarily being violent, but if you get a large group of people and they're very loud, it can cause anxiety for other people because you don't know, well, are they going to start, um, harassing others or what? Um, I think some people don't realize that when they're getting loud, it doesn't matter that they're not being violent or they're not directly communicating with others. That loudness is itself antisocial. Um, just respect others. It's not rocket science. So a two-drink limit. I can see a practical problem. It will be hard to police. I mean, it may then put the pressure on bar staff, but honestly, if it's a choice between pressure on bar staff, at least they have the backup of the police in the airport versus pressure on flight crew who don't have that option. They basically have to put up with it at 35,000 feet for up to 3 hours. Um, but it is notable that this problem doesn't happen anywhere near as much on, say, Emirates or British Airways or China Southern or long haul flight. And I've been on both. I've been on short trips to the continent and I've been on the long haul flights to the other side of the world. Um, Something has to be done. So, people might say, oh, this is going to be impossible to police, and maybe it is. But something has to be done. Um, I would support. I mean, he mentions that they check bags as they go in, but that isn't even enough. I suppose what that means is people bringing on beers or whatever, although you're not allowed liquid on flights. I'm not quite sure how that would work anyway, because you have to put your bag through, the check-in area, or the check-in, the security area. So I don't know. I mean, I'm broadly sympathetic to anything that scales back on this sort of obnoxious entitled behavior, and I just don't see why anyone needs more than two drinks. If there's a long delay, like a long delay, say more than 5 hours, because I mentioned that because say it's like a 2 hour delay or something, that's a nuisance, of course. But have a coffee. I just don't see this need to have more than two drinks. And I'm no prude. I like a drink as much as anyone, but I really don't think you need more than two drinks. You know, if you can't function without that, then maybe you've got a problem. Um, so anyway, let me know your thoughts. I'll put a link to the article, the full article. It's not that long, but I'm broadly supportive of it because you wouldn't pay me to go on a flight to Benidorm or to one of the Greek islands if there's a hen party or a stag party on it. I just think that would be my idea of a nightmare, actually. Um, but there's other, short haul flights to European capitals that may or may not have this problem as well. Um, but there might be plenty of other people who aren't going to get tanked up. They're going actually to see the place. Probably less likely in somewhere like Benidorm, but you know, take for example capital cities. You might well get people going to Amsterdam or Vilnius or somewhere like that for a stag or hen party. But you might well have people who are going because they want to see the sights and they want to take in the culture. Um, I don't get a good impression from stag and hen parties. I'm sure people will say, "Oh, they're not all bad, Nathan. They don't all behave like that." Yeah, but most do. I mean, come on. It's just, it's just a trend. It's just what seems to happen at stag and hen parties. Because the whole point is, they're going to get inebriated, play some prank on the groom or the bride or whatever it is. And that's fine to have their little internal laughs, but then it's imposing it on other people. That's what I find. I watched a documentary recently actually about these sort of problems in airports, and it tends to be short haul flights in Europe and internal flights in the United States. That tends to be where there's most obnoxious behavior. Not universally. There was an incident in the early 2010s, I believe, when Korean Air, it was a notorious incident called Nutgate, where an executive, I believe she was the daughter, in fact, of one of the CEOs, she made demands about nuts being served properly in first class, and she actually physically assaulted one of the cabin crew. She did get arrested, and it caused a huge backlash. So I'm not suggesting that bad behavior is unique to short haul flights, um, but it does seem to be a problem with that. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. I'm no prude. I like a drink as much as anyone. I'd be fine with a drink or two in a bar in an airport. Although it would be pricey. I usually go for a coffee myself, but I'm not going to, I have no problem with that. I do have a problem with this idea that people need more than two drinks. And I think something needs to be done because there's just no valid reason why other people should have to put up with that when they've paid for the flight, or why flight crews should have to put up with it. Let me know your thoughts.